First, we have the table of contents. I don't think there's going to be any need. I don't know if anybody wants me to read the table of contents, but I'll do it. All right, table of contents. We get the introduction, flavor of Ravenloft, about Morden, the bare facts, alternate histories, the curse, and plot overview. Part 1, starting the adventure. The Beach Mermaid, the hunt. Part 2, Bog, take your bones. Hounded, meeting Michaels. Part 3, the Hounds are forever yours. Wescote Manor, the course of events. Part 4, the lie beneath my hand. Encounters in the bog. Part 5, live long and suffer. Alternate endings ending 1, 2, 3, and 4. Appendix 4, the cast of characters. And then Bog Hounds. So, all right. Credits. Colin McComb, edited by David Gross. Project coordination, Andrea Hayday and Harold Johnson. Cover art by Paul Jacques. Black and white art by Mark Nelson. Graphics coordination, Sarah Fiegelstad. Art coordination, Peggy Cooper. Cartography, David C. Sutherland III. Typesetting, Angelica Lokitz. Thanks to Thomas Reed, Bill Connors, John R. Ratliff, Bill Slavisk, and especially David Wise, published by TSR, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And then there's the disclaimer. Then we get into the introduction. Beside the Sea of Sorrows rest Morden, its chalk cliffs rising high above the pounding surf. Scattered rocks lie tumbled at the base of the white walls. Above the cliffs sprawl green meadows and hills. Past these lurk the moors, their undulating expanses dotted by stone monoliths and treacherous bogs. Stunted tree clusters like old gossips, providing scant shelter against the cold sea winds. Mists are common, rising up from the ground at the day's end to obscure the moor. Hidden shapes writhe and twist beneath these fogs. Strange lights glow briefly and wink out, and the mournful baying of hounds rises above the cirruses of the leaves and the weeds. It is here that the curse of the Wescote family has taken root, and it is here that it will be resolved. Howls of the Night is designed for 4 to 6 players of 3rd to 5th level. The party should include 1 or more priests. At least 1 character should have a magical weapon. However, the character should not be over-equipped with magic, or they may find the obstacles too easy. The adventure should challenge the characters, not allow them to mince every obstacle in their path. On the other hand, the Dungeon Master shouldn't hesitate to adjust the numbers of powers of the monsters encountered if the party is suffering too many grievous defeats. Scarring the players without killing the characters is always the best option. The DM should let the foolish or reckless heroes meet horrible dooms. I love that. The Dungeon Master should read carefully through the entire adventure before beginning play. This enables the DM to be well prepared for any unexpected party actions and to modify portions of the adventure to fit the campaign. It is essential in this adventure because Howls in the Night has been designed to have several different conclusions based on one of 4 adventure histories. Each of the alternate backgrounds provides a different way of looking at the tragedy that occurred on Morden 1 century ago. Burton Wescote is either an evil man or just a lovelorn suitor, and Cambell is either an innocent victim or a scheming fiend. The DM should choose one of the 4 histories and stick to it for the course of the adventure. When the heroes approach the climax of the adventure, the DM's chosen history will determine the means by which the curse can be overcome. The panels of this module's cover contain the maps for all the major encounter areas in this adventure. Note Part 2 and Part 4 share one map since these events occur in the same location. Part 2 encounters are keyed with the number 1. Encounters for Part 4 are keyed using letters. The flavor of Ravenloft. The importance of fear and horror checks cannot be overstated. The atmosphere of Ravenloft is one of gothic horror. The setting is one of which the heroes must move through the world, discovering more and more horrifying secrets, encountering more and more evil beings. While the heroes ultimately face and have the chance to overcome that evil, they should first be terrified by it. It is essential that the DM create a feeling of terror for the players throughout the adventure. If the players are willing to roleplay their heroes' fears, the DM need not require fear or horror checks. On the other hand, if they are unaffected by horrific occurrences, the whole adventure suffers. The DM is then perfectly justified in requiring fear or horror checks. Calling for the checks is thus purely a discretionary matter on the DM's part. About Mordant. Mordant, the domain, which this adventure takes place in, is a land of moors and hills, forest and downs, a country alternatively bleak and beautiful. Farms dot the land, though most are clustered around Mordenshire, where the townsfolk band together against the darkness. They know that evil walks the night, for the land is full of supernatural horrors. Mordenshire is set in the western region of the core. This domain is under the purview of Lord Godfroy, a ghost residing in the capital of Mordenshire. Godfroy takes little interest in the lands beyond Mordenshire, or indeed in those lands beyond the borders of his haunted estate on Griffin Hill. As the lord of the domain, however, Godfroy is aware of most of the activities in the land. He simply does not take direct action in most cases. He certainly does not take part in this adventure, so the heroes need not worry about encountering a foe they cannot possibly defeat. Mordenshire is the only notable settlement in the domain. However, there are many small fishing villages along the coast, as well as tiny villages scattered among the forest. These people are of every size and color, but there are no demi-humans. The people are laborers, peasants, shepherds, and most of all, fisherfolk. Fishing is the lifeblood of Morden's natives, and most reserve their respect for someone who knows something about the sea. Although they are polite, the people are extremely reserved around outsiders. They volunteer no information and do their best to keep to themselves. They are adroit at changing any subject about which they don't wish to speak, and they won't speak about most of the supernatural goings-on in the domain, believing that to speak of evil is to invite its presence. The fisherfolk are fairly superstitious, and for good reason. They have lived a land of supernatural horrors, though it is rare that a person has actually witnessed any physical manifestation of the undead. The natives accept the demi-humans only warily, seeing them as part of the supernatural world. To the north end and east of Mordenshire, about an hour's ride away, lies Wescote Manor. The short 6 miles, however, can seem endless. Thick woods press on in the furrowed path to the manor, giving way only to bleak and barren moors. The bare facts. Although the heroes most likely will hear it from the sheriff, anyone in Mordenshire can tell the following tale. About 100 years ago, Burton Wescote and Anne Cambell were engaged to be married. It was an arranged wedding, valuable to both families. There was no love lost between the Wescotes of Morden and the Cambells of Diminuliu, though the groom, at least, was willing to go through with the marriage. Anne's family brought her to the manor so the couple could get acquainted before their union. Though Anne remained vehemently opposed to the wedding, the rest of the Cambells stayed at the inn here in Mordenshire. Sometime during the night, Anne fled the manor into the bog, but not before killing Michael, one of the Wescote brothers, who apparently tried to prevent her from leaving. Burton set the dogs after her. Later, he said that he had trained them to subdue their prey and ordered them to do so when he loosed them. He and his dogs raced through the night after the fleeing Anne. The dogs outdistanced Wescote and gained ground on the girl. She fled into the mist that always seemed to rise near the bog. The dogs closed at her heels. Wescote ran after, a few minutes behind. Whatever happened out there, no one really knows. Wescote returned covered in mud and slime, his face scratched by brambles, and his clothes torn from where he had stumbled on the chase. They say he was crazy with fear or loss. When questioned, he would say nothing of what happened in the moors, except that Anne had died in the bogs, and that he had no hand in her death. Naturally, neither family believed him. Michael and Burton Wescote were known to be the closest of brothers, and everyone thought Burton had killed Anne in revenge. The Campbells thought it likely that Burton had chased Anne into the moors for the express purpose of killing her, but none could prove it. They moved back into Diminuliu, cursing the name of the Wescotes. The Wescotes praised Burton for pursuing the murderer to her death. The two families who hadn't gotten along in the best of times became bitter enemies. Then, for some reason or another, the Wescotes began disappearing, singularly or in small groups. Eventually, only a few ragged servants and the last of the Wescotes remained behind at Wescote Manor. One rumor holds that the Wescotes fled to reestablish their family someplace else, in a place they could start afresh. Another rumor says that the Wescotes were killed by a great black moorhound, a dog said to be the embodiment of the Cambell's curse on the Wescotes. Regardless, the people of Mordenshire and the neighboring villages know better than to go out into the moors when the moon is high and the mist rises. The howls sound as soon as the sun sets, and only a fool would challenge the beast or beast that makes such cries. A few who have gone out seeking the lair of the creatures have found nothing, and though the monsters vanish during the daytime, those who have sought the beast in the night have been found in the morning at the edge of the moors with their entrails spilled about them. Needless to say, we pretty much leave the place alone these days. Alternate histories. The bare facts above represent a common knowledge. This section reveals knowledge that is not so common. The DM must read through these histories to determine what background best suits the campaign. The skeleton of the history as outlined above remains the same without casting guilt or blame on either the Wescotes or the Cambells. One thing that remains constant, known by only a few, is the fact that it was not the Cambell curse that laid the Wescote family low. Or rather, it was not the curse given by the surviving Cambells. The curse was laid by Anne Cambell as she and the Hounds were caught and sank in a pool of quicksand. As she descended deeper into the quagmire, Anne cried, "Bog, take your bones and keep them, Burton, Wescote. The Hounds are forever yours." And here she forced another dog below the quicksand. "By now they lie beneath my hand." She laughed bitterly in spite of her impending doom. "Long live and suffer, you selfish." Then she sank below the surface. A few minutes later, Bubbles rose to release Anne's final breath, and no more was ever seen of her. And the rest, as they say, was history. Burton's relatives abandoned him, either through their own agency or through their deaths, leaving him to tend to the house on the moor with only a few servants to aid him. Whether the curse or the fear of the curse drove this family away, no one can say. However, no one doubts the efficacy of the curse, real or imagined. Below are the 4 possible histories of Burton Wescote and Anne Cambell. They are each simple variations on the same basic tale, but the changes from one to another determine who will threaten the heroes and who will need their help. History 1, Wescote the Scoundrel. In this history, Burton Wescote is a scoundrel and a rogue, a man of such bad character that Anne Cambell could not bear the thought of marrying him. When she attempted to flee, Burton's brother Michael saw her and chased her through the halls. Cornered in the kitchen, she seized a knife to defend herself. In the midst of the struggle that followed, Burton inadvertently thrust himself upon the blade and died. Anne then fled into the night. Enraged by both her fight and the death of his brother, the wicked Burton Wescote set loose his hounds. They hunted and finally drove Anne into the bog, driving her into the quicksand. Burton stood by and watched her drown, laughing when she pronounced her dying curse. To hide his evil deeds, he scratched himself with thorns, ripped his clothing, and smeared it with mud, and then called home to present his story. History number 2, Anne the Shrew. On the eve of her wedding, the black-hearted Anne Cambell sought to exact some measure of vengeance on the man who had forced this marriage upon her. Since she knew he doted on the dog, she planned to slip out, slit the throats of his favorite hounds, and then head north to Port-à-Lucien in Demenilou. As she was selecting the knife for her crime, Michael Wescote cornered her in the kitchen. He saw the knife in her hand and feared she might mean to harm his brother. The two struggled briefly, then Michael staggered away with the knife protruding from his chest. Though the black-hearted Anne was horrified, she had never killed a person before, and she feared her life would be short and miserable if she were caught by the Wescotes. Thus she chose to flee into the moors, leaving Burton to find his dying brother. Outraged, Wescote sent his dog loose to hunt Anne Cambell and ran after them, but the disaster also ran behind him. When he arrived at the place where his pack howled and snarled, he saw that he was too late to bring Anne to justice. Though he cast about in vain for a branch or a vine with which to save her from the quicksand, she cursed him and his family and sank to her death. Filled with grief for his brother, Burton staggered home across the moor, ignoring the cuts and the thorns from the jagged rocks inflicted upon him. Through some miracle, he returned home safely, little knowing his bad fortune was just beginning. History 3, Evil Loathes Company. Burton Wescote had always been a black-hearted man. His mind always set on how best to reap a profit for himself from the misery of others. His proudest achievement, or so he thought at the time, was to arrange a marriage with Anne Cambell, thus putting the wealth of the Campbells at his disposal. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Anne was at least as evil as he, if not more. When they met, it was hate at first sight. Burton was willing to endure a few months of marriage before killing Anne. He needed at least that long to get his hands into the Cambell treasury. Thus, he hid his disdain for the woman as best he could. However, she felt no such restraint. She declared to both families that she would rather die than be forced to marry that Wescote cur. He told her that any attempts to flee would be met with the harshest of punishment. So, he locked her in the room and headed downstairs to carouse with his family and friends. Having some of the experience at removing troublesome locks, Anne quickly escaped the room and headed downstairs. She went to the kitchen to select a knife for herself, imagining that she could greet Wescote in his room if he came up in a drunken stupor. Unfortunately, Michael Wescote entered just as she plucked the largest knife from the rack. Thinking him to be his brother, Anne plunged the knife into Michael before he could raise the alarm. She watched as he staggered back out of the kitchen, and she realized that he was going to fall right in the midst of Wescote and his cronies. She turned and fled the house. Burton Wescote was outraged to see his plan destroyed by a headstrong girl. Enraged not so much by the death of his brother as by the fact that she was foiling his plans, Burton set his hounds out after Anne and fetched a length of rope which to bind her. Looping after the howling pack, he was soon outdistanced. Nevertheless, he followed the baying hounds. When Anne's flight trapped her in the mire and saw him approaching, she cursed him loudly. Even as he fought off the dogs, he stood at the edge of the quicksand and chuckled over her plight. He then offered her a choice: marry him or perish in the quicksand. She spat at him. In return, she threw the entire length of rope into the mire to sink with her. Burton stood and watched as both she and the rope vanished out of sight. The only unhappy aspect of the whole affair was that his dogs perished in the quicksand as well. On the way home, he paused to make himself the perfect picture of the grieving groom. He slashed himself in mud, scratched himself with thistles, and contemplated ways to turn the situation to his advantage with the Campbells. Unfortunately, all his plans came to naught, and the Campbells blamed him anyway. History number 4. The Curse of the Bog. Burton Wescote never meant anyone any harm, but even he could see the disdain in Anne Campbell's eyes when she was brought to him for the arranged marriage. Neither of them had asked for the marriage, but Burton was resigned to it. Anne was not. Although she was good-hearted, she was blind to the Wescotes' virtues, and she had been raised to believe that the Wescotes were evil monsters, and her family's acceptance of his proposal confused her. The wedding night, she decided to flee. She paused to gather up supplies for her journey to Mordenshire. Michael Wescote discovered her in the kitchen, and she was holding a knife. Frightened, she struggled to get away, and in the heat of the moment, flailed at him, stabbing him with the knife. Horrified by what she had done, Anne fled at once. Burton, outraged at his brother's murder, set his hounds after so that she could be brought to justice. The hounds were overzealous, however, and forced Anne into the mire. Burton arrived breathless and did his best to rescue her from the quicksand. Despite his best efforts, Anne cursed him as she sank into the quicksand. When Burton returned to the manor, he found all in chaos. Afterwards, his family fortune rapidly dwindled. Introduction. The Curse. The curse laid on Burton Wescote has 5 parts. The first brings the bogs of the moor closer to Wescote Manor year by year until the area has nearly reached the keep. The manor is encircled by the bogs, and it's only through careful navigation can one find a way through. The manor is encircled by the bogs, and it is only through careful navigation that one can find a way through the mazes of fetid water and marshy land. In few years, the manor house will sink into the bog, leaving only a small patch of land on which Wescote can live, and probably not there for long, given the likely fatality of the rest of the curse. The second part creates the Bog Hounds, supernatural creatures of mud and straw. These are the spiritual remnants of the hounds that pursued Anne Cambell into the quagmire. Linked by their shared death, the hounds follow Anne's bidding implicitly. Unlike the original pack, however, these hounds are limitless as long as Anne has the will to create them. For more information regarding the Bog Hounds, see Monstrous Compendium. The third part is embodied by the Moorhound, the leader of the Bog Hounds once they have been created. The Moorhound's sole mission, it seems, is to harry and vex Wescote at night until it can lure him into the swampy land and kill him. For more details, see the appendix and the MC entry in the back of the book. The fourth part has granted a horrid undead existence to Anne Cambell, making her the spirit and mind, the central force behind the evil of the bog. Whatever goodness might have lingered in her spirit has been destroyed by this mockery of a life. Now she seeks revenge on the man she blames for her demise. Her thirst for vengeance and her hatred are so great that she may live on even after all the conditions of the curse are fully fulfilled, playing havoc on unwary travelers. She hates all true life in general and wealthy men in particular, and she will seek to doom them as she has been doomed. The fifth part grants the Wescote immortality at a price. He has lived more than a century, seeming without aging. The reason behind this tortures him day and night, both physically and spiritually. In order to sustain his youthful form, and what good is immortality without the vigor to enjoy it, he must venture into the moor daily and drink a cup of water from any of the bogs. Since the essence of Anne Cambell has spread through the nearby moor, he must, in short, drink of Anne to stay alive. This is not without his price. The water is mildly poisonous, inflicting stomach pains and nausea for 1d6 hours after imbibing it. All attacks and saving throws are made of a -3. While under the influence of the bog water, the mere sight or smell of food or drink is enough to make one violently ill. Yet Wescote has no choice but to continue consuming it. If he does not, he ages 10 years for every day that he tries to remain free of the nauseating influence. No matter how old he grows in outward appearance, he stays miserably alive. Once he tried to resist the effects of the pain, but he grew so old that the agony was unbearable. In his miserable state, he crawled to the bog, dragging his decrepit form behind him. He had no wish to endure such torment again. The lost years returned to him at the rate of 10 years every 2 days. The curse can be broken in several ways. First, the manor house can be destroyed, thus laying the history of the Wescotes to rest. Second, Anne Cambell's body can be dredged up from the muck of the bog and exposed to the light of day. Third, the Moorhound can be exposed to sunlight and destroyed. This does not actually break the curse, but it weakens the power that Cambell holds. Finally, the heroes may throw Wescote into the mire, sending him to join the woman he killed a century ago. Overview. This section provides a synopsis of how the adventure is likely to play. Keep in mind that the synopsis is not the only order of this adventure, for gamers are unpredictable. Each party follows its own priorities. Don't worry if the players surprise you with their choices. You should be able to get things back on track without obvious manipulation, permitting the players to investigate those things that are important. Each clue they find should steer them back to the main adventure, and always feel free to improvise using the cast of non-player characters. Create more details and personality for these characters. Use NPCs to lead the party back to the correct path, or to lead them astray if the players are having too easy of a time in the adventure. Always play this adventure in your own style, and it will work the best. First, the heroes must arrive in Morden. Then, while sheltering at an inn on the edge of Mordenshire, one of the tiny outlying villages, they hear the sound of hounds baying. The village folk explain that the dogs have been plaguing the village for years, and they plead with the heroes to end the dogs' reign of terror. They will send the heroes out into the moor. While the heroes wander there, they find the bog area away from there, are driven toward Wescote Manor by the dogs, or become lost until they encounter the manor. Once inside Wescote Manor, they find Burton Wescote preparing a defense against the dogs, who pad around the manor restlessly. Burton explains his plight and paints himself as the innocent of the story. Even if this is not truly the case, he asks the heroes to help break the curse so he can continue with a normal life. Ideally, the heroes accept this offer. If they do, Wescote sends them into the bog to seek out the lost body of Anne Cambell. If they do not, Wescote tries to sweeten the deal with money. If all else fails, he simply curses them for being cowards as they leave. While in the bog, a mist rolls over the moors, hiding the sun. The heroes have several encounters that lead them closer to Cambell's body. But if they are eventually driven to the manor, here they learn the truth about what happened long ago, as well as the nature of the curse, just in time to repel an attack from the Bog Hounds, led by the Moorhound. From here, they can figure out the method to break the curse and travel on to the next adventure. This is the most likely course of events. There's always a chance that the heroes will go off chasing on a false trail or abandon the adventure entirely, especially if Wescote is revealed to be a villain. The DM will want to prevent the players from avoiding the entire adventure. Though the players may choose to ignore the adventure here, there is nothing to say that they cannot be cursed until they perform a deed to rectify their ambivalence. Perhaps as they traipse their way across the moor, they hear a lonely howling of a large hound. Thereafter, when the party attempts to hide or move by stealth, the howling sets in again, rising in intensity until not even the dullest guard can make a mistake and fail to be alert. In short, the curse badgers the heroes when they least need or want it to, destroying their fragile plans wherever acceptable. If nothing of this adventure suggests itself, the heroes might be mauled by a giant dog in the night if the party never gets a glimpse of the beast responsible. If they post a watch, the guard slips into a light doze, awakening to the sounds of thrashing, screaming horses. Or at an inn, the heroes could wake up to feel hot breath on their face, but when they open their eyes, there's nothing there. Closer inspection, however, reveals that some large dog has been in the room with them, for it has tracked muddy footprints and drool all over the room, as well as the other rooms of the inn. One of the few remedies the heroes may discover that can help heroes resolve their minor curse, though, through a wandering seer, it is that they must return to help Burton Wescote. This solution may be extended to other adventures in Ravenloft. When the characters fail to fulfill some obligation that they have taken upon themselves, or, more likely, if they neglect some duty, they can be marked in some way by that adventure. This mark should reflect the nature of the quest they have abandoned, but rarely should it overwhelm the heroes with memories of quests forgotten. These minor hauntings may take many forms: scars that do not fully heal, incessant headaches made worse whenever the hero views scenes that remind them of their neglected duty, ominous fortunes told by wandering Vistani, reoccurring nightmares which prevent spellcasters from memorizing all their spells, or even a real mark upon the heroes' faces, causing all strangers to view them as outcasts. Any mark should serve as a reminder of inaction more than as punishments. Use them to spur the players into action, but not destroy the heroes. Welcome once again to Ravenloft. Mordenshire's little homes huddle against the chills in the night. The distant surf, mingled with the calls of the hounds, warns even as it beckons. The moon is bright among the clouds, and even now the mist rolls slowly in from the moors. Starting the adventure. In this first section, the heroes arrive at Mordenshire and learn of the hounds that terrorize the town before facing the Bog Hounds themselves. The party can begin the adventure either inside of the demiplane or in their own world. If the heroes begun outside the misty borders, it is a simple matter to bring them to Mordenshire. The DM can simply read or paraphrase the following text, modifying it where necessary to fit into the ongoing campaign. As you trudge down the road, the land is cast in shadow as thick clouds veil the setting sun. A chill wind rises suddenly, blowing in your face, chafing with its force. In minutes, the sun is entirely hidden, and the countryside is plunged into darkness. The wind rises in a lonely canine howl, then dies, just as abruptly as it begun. The night falls still, not a breath of a breeze. After a bit, the rising moon peeks through the veil of the clouds, but a mantle of mist rises from the damp ground beside the road. With preternatural speed, the fog thickens into a cotton gray, obscuring sight beyond 20 feet. Sounds are likewise muffled in the thick mist. As the minutes pass, the fog thins and then dissipates, revealing an unfamiliar land from the one that you saw before the fog. Dozens of yards ahead, past the flanking farmlands, you see the lights of a town gleaming through the night. Beyond the town comes the sound of waves crashing upon a rocky shoreline. If the heroes are already in Ravenloft, but nowhere near Mordenshire, the Mist transport them to the town as described above. If the heroes are in the vicinity, they find that their road takes some unexpected twist leading them to the town. Regardless, the heroes find themselves entering Mordenshire at night, or just as the sun is setting and people are hurrying home. These folk all seem to be fishers, farmers, or spouses of those who toil on land or sea. They are rough, weather-bitten people who have no time to waste. The locals give the heroes glances of mild curiosity, but none stop to ask the heroes what they are doing in this town, since the locals are intent on getting home before the deep of the night. If there are demi-humans with the party, the village people simply give the party a wider berth, steering clear to make sure of avoiding contact with the group. The people of the town talk to the party if the heroes can catch their attention. The people of the town talk to the party if the heroes can catch their attention. The people are friendly if somewhat rough around the edges, and they can tell the heroes general information about the town, as well as the name of the local inn most likely to help welcome adventuring types. The Bleached Mermaid. The rest of the town offers services one might expect from a town of 2,000, including a blacksmith with no great talent, several taverns, a general store, and no more. The people of the town keep mostly to themselves, preferring not to socialize with the heroes. The Bleached Mermaid. The tavern is an island of warmth amid an autumn breeze blowing off the sea. Dressed in mahogany and brass, the whole bar has a nautical decor. A roaring blaze in the fireplace dispels the chill of the night. The patrons of the bar are, for the most part, grizzled seafaring types. All 15 of them glance up briefly as the heroes enter, then turn back to their business almost immediately. The innkeeper is a white-haired, bushy-bearded man named Captain Garrett Nancy. The captain, as he prefers to be called, serves the heroes with a smile. He hovers nearby to speak with them. As a non-native to Morden, the captain finds that much of the townfolk do not speak to him as much as he would like, and he certainly enjoys hearing tales of the outside world. Indeed, if the heroes can tell him some interesting news, he buys them the first round of drinks. Even if they don't, he settles down to swap stories with the party, recognizing in them kindred spirits filled with wanderlust. If the heroes are looking for a place to spend the night, he can offer them some clean rooms for a mere 5 silver pieces per person. Supper will cost 1 gold piece. As the heroes settle down to enjoy the evening, a few more people arrive. The captain then closes the bars and the door. He gives the heroes a warm smile, as he does so telling them, "The night ain't safe." After a short time, he returns to their table and says, "Mayhap barring a door at night seems a bit queer to you. Let me tell you why I do it. Here, in Mordenshire, the night is full of strange things. The house on Griffin Hill? Well, that's only one of the places said to be haunted. Still, as they say around here, if you don't bother evil, it won't bother you. But all that's begun to change recently. Do you hear that howling?" Above the moan of the wind, you can hear the sound of dogs baying. The sound is faint, but it sends shiver along your spine. "Aye, those hounds prowl the countryside at night in Mordenshire. They haven't worked up the gumption to come down here into the town, but they've been harrying the outlying farms, killing those who wander abroad in the night, making everyone afraid to travel after sunset. The strange thing is that they never come out during the day. Nobody's ever seen one in the sunlight. What this town needs is someone to get rid of those dogs. Everyone here would gladly reach into their purses and raise money for the bounty hunters to get rid of those beasts. Now you seem more daring than the rest of the folks hereabout.
better suited for danger if I read you all right. You interested?
Simply by passing a bowl among those at the inn, all of whom look like they're ready to spend the night here rather than wander out into the darkness. The captain gathers a bounty pot of 100 gold pieces, surely enough to persuade someone to take on a pack of hungry dogs. If this is not enough for the party, the captain promises to check with the mayor the next day to try and get the town to throw some money into the pot to sweeten the deal. If the heroes are eager to leave in the night to hunt the hounds, the captain won't unbar the door, but he will offer the heroes room and board for the night, as well as breakfast, to ensure that they can begin the hunt well fed and rested. If the party insists on heading out this night, they will find a hostile crowd of locals bearing the way. If the heroes sneak out during the night, proceed to part 2, changing references from day to the night, and have the heroes encounter the sheriff as his men near the bog. If the heroes decide to sleep, their dreams are plagued by an enormous black mastiff, a dog larger and fiercer than any that they have seen. Tell any player who asks about the dream that the vision of this dog is no doubt caused by the incessant howling of the hounds in the night. Then smile as if you know better. The next day, the weather is full of foul portent. During the day, a thick fog has rolled in off the ocean, pressing against the windows of the inn as if eager to enter. The embers of the night's fire still warm the now empty common room. Those who spent the night have left to get to the day's work. True to his word, the captain has a fine breakfast spread out for the heroes. After the heroes have eaten their fill and shoved their plates away, a boy bursts into the inn's door. Panting and out of breath, he shouts, "Shepherd Dawson's been killed!" The hunt. The local sheriff and some of his deputies arrive close on the lad's heels. A crowd of people begins to gather outside. The sheriff eyes the heroes and the innkeeper, and then declares, "The mayor has authorized me to deputize all the available able-bodied folk of the village and put an end to these hounds. We're going to search out these dogs' lair. They've killed one of the shepherds, and he'll be the last to die if I have anything to say in the matter." The sheriff is not looking for arguments. He will reply to any questions the heroes might have about the case. He doesn't have many answers, though, and he will not take much time to satisfy the party's curiosity. After all, he does have a hunt to organize. He knows that the dogs have become bolder, entering the fields around the very town, and they have claimed their first victim last night. He has not yet been out to examine the body, as he begun organizing the search party as soon as he heard of the atrocity. He also knows the lay of the land. He tells the heroes to follow him as he heads out the door. If the party does not comply, the sheriff at first tries to reason with them. Failing that, he then tells them that he'll have them thrown in jail if they cannot find it in themselves to do the decent thing and come out and aid the town. He is perfectly serious in this threat, and will have the party bound by the mass of people outside, their equipment confiscated until they decide to aid the town. The sheriff is initially polite, but the reports of the day are already wearing on his nerves, and he does not want more trouble on his hands. When the heroes accept, the sheriff leads the group of deputies, about 100 strong, towards the shepherd's house. All the townsfolk are strangely quiet. The sheriff invites the heroes to walk with him. As they walk through the fog, the heroes can question him about the land. The sheriff is amiable, though clearly upset about the killings. He can tell them the story of Burton Wescote, the bare facts from the introduction, as well as any rumors, clues, or red herrings that you wish to give the players. The sheriff tells the heroes that the Wescote Manor House is a few miles to the northeast, but the hunt shouldn't take them that far. Eventually, the hunters arrive at the site of Shepherd Dawson's cottage. It is a ramshackle little place, badly weathered by the harsh climate of the sea. The building is secure and holds no clues within it as to what might have killed the shepherd. Around the back of the building are the sheep's pens, which are strangely silent. Once the characters round the cottage, they can see why. Every single sheep had its throat torn out. Lying in the middle of the pen is the body of a middle-aged man.
Somebody's got a morbid sense of humor,
the sheriff says. He gestures toward the body of the shepherd. The man's throat has been torn open by some creature. Jagged tears surround the wound. Standing over the corpse is a straw sculpture of a dog. A large hound patched together with mud. There's blood dripping from the thorny teeth of the figure. As you look, an icy blast of wind blows the beast apart, scattering the straw and leaving only a few blood-stained stalks of hay to mark where it once stood. If the heroes check for tracks, they find something rather odd. Both the hounds and the shepherd's prints clearly lead to this spot, but there are no other prints to indicate that the statue was placed there by a third party. If the heroes do not check this obvious clue, one of the other deputies points it out to them. The sheriff is befuddled by this once it is pointed out, but he takes charge quickly. He divides the hunting party into groups no larger than 8 people. He then tells each group to form a line. He assigns the heroes to follow the tracks back to their source, and tells the others to fan out in an effort to pick up the tracks. The trail the heroes are to follow heads northwest toward Wescote Manor. The sheriff remarks upon this, saying,
"Perhaps they lie in the bog near the manor."
His manner is uneasy, and he looks about the area as if he were expecting an attack at any time.
"I wish this blasted fog would clear. It was gone for a short time this morning, but it really has come back with a vengeance. It'll make the tracking harder. We're going to have a system to keep track of each other. Any suggestions?"
The sheriff gives the heroes an opportunity to suggest some method of communication. If no one suggests anything, the captain suggests that they call out every few minutes so no one gets lost. Using a rope will only permit one group of 8 to be tied together. Once the method has been agreed upon, the hunt sets out. It's a good thing the sheriff insists for communication, for the visibility out here is limited to about 20 feet. The heroes cannot even make out the group next to theirs, but communication flows well, with the shouts coming up and down the line every few minutes. Still, the whole hunting party is spread out, becoming more and more dispersed. Suddenly, a mournful yowling rises. It sounds as if scores of dogs are howling in unison. The eerie sound of the dog grows louder and louder as the sounds of the other hunting party groups diminishes. Suddenly, there are screams of pain and surprise in the distance, as well as the bays of the hunting dogs. It sounds as though another group of the deputies is being attacked. If the heroes go to investigate, they find that the fog has confused their sense of direction, muffling the sound and making it seem as though it's coming from someplace entirely different. Once the heroes go and aid the rest of the deputies, they find themselves winding their way deeper and deeper into the bog, drawn closer to a meeting with Burton Wescote. No matter which way they go, the fog confuses them and leads them towards the manor. If the heroes opt not to go to the raid of the rest of the hunting party, or if they stay in one place, they are hunted by a pack of Bog Hounds that pick up their scent. The heroes become aware that they are being hunted when howls sound nearby, seemingly within 30 feet. However, because of the density of the fog, the heroes can see nothing. The sound carries well, though it reveals nothing of the direction of the source, and the heroes can hear the panting of several hounds and the padding of their feet. Once the hounds have surrounded the heroes, they fall silent and close in, baying suddenly only when the heroes can see them. The heroes and other characters may be required to make fear checks when they see the eyeless dogs looming out of the fog. Bog Hounds 10, Intelligence Semi, Alignment Neutral Evil, Armor Class 5, Movement 15, Hit Die 2+2,
Hit points 16 each. Thaco 19. Number of attacks 3. Damage 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 6. Size medium. ML 15. XP 15. XP 65 each. The hounds fight to the death. They have no life for which to be careful. When they are destroyed, they revert to the mud and straw from which they were formed. The mist that provides them life drifts away, unseen in the thick fog. The heroes may have to make a fear check when the creatures die and transform into straw and muck. This is a one-time check, for the heroes will become acclimated to this after they have faced the creatures once. During the battle, the hounds force the heroes towards the bog. Proceed to Part 2. Bog, take your bones.
After the heroes have fought or fled the first group of hounds, they must survive the dangers of the bog itself, not the least of which is continued pursuit by the hounds. Here they will learn more about the area, the nearby manor, and Burton Wescote by talking with Douglas Michaels, Wescote's gardener. The hero's interaction with Michaels will determine the reception they receive when they finally arrive at Wescote Manor. Hounded! The sounds of the other deputies have faded to nothing during the battle. Your surroundings are damp and marshy. The sound of water dripping off moss-draped skeletons of trees fills the lonely moor. All around rise the drone of buzzing insects and the harsh cawing of carrion birds. The sound seems somehow lost and forlorn through the dense fog. Then, out of the lonely gray comes the baying of the dread hounds as the pack once more takes up the hunt, and you must turn and flee deeper into the depths of the great bog. Your haphazard flight leads into thicker growths, green yet rancid, somehow drawing strength from the stagnant waters through which you now slog. Abruptly, your foot sinks into a morass. Only quick reflexes save you from being swallowed by the bog. As you come to realize this entire swamp hides danger everywhere, and a misstep could spell your doom. The heroes will be pursued by the Bog Hounds while they remain on the moors. The heroes will not have time to stop and investigate, for as soon as they dispatch their attackers, 4 more hounds take up the hunt. The heroes have 10 minutes rounds at most between attacks. Inexorably, the heroes will be driven towards the lost Douglas Michaels, Burton Wescote's gardener. But before they encounter him, they must learn how to navigate the bog. The heroes must first deal with the slowed movement. Unless they have some magic that allows them unrestricted action in this plant-choked place, their movement rate is reduced to 1/3 of normal. Though there are game trails and small paths crisscrossing the entire bog, the trails are so overgrown that they hamper movement significantly. If the heroes are on one or more of the established trails used by the hounds or the servants of Wescote Manor, then their movement rate raises to 2/3 normal. The greatest danger of the bog is quicksand. There's a 15% chance each round that the heroes encounter a patch of quicksand. The patch will be formed from 10 to 60 feet wide and may actually wait for a few rounds before the heroes realize their predicament. Each hero must make a successful saving throw versus spell or step into the quicksand. If anyone falls into the quicksand, they must each make a swimming proficiency check. If they succeed, the victim can stay afloat indefinitely, though any movement through the morass is extremely difficult. 1 foot every 3 rounds. Those who fail have panicked and are treated as if they do not have the swimming proficiency at all. Characters without the swimming proficiency can stay afloat for 1/4 of their constitution score in turns. Each turn spent in the quicksand exhausts the heroes and gives them a -1 penalty to attacks unless the heroes have rested at least 1 turn for each turn spent in the quicksand. Once a victim sinks below the surface, he can only survive briefly. Given a good gulp of air, heroes can hold their breath a number of rounds equal to 1/6 their constitution score. After this time, if they continue to try to hold their breaths, they must make a successful constitution check each round, with a cumulative -2 penalty after the first round. Once the check is failed, the character drowns. Rescuing someone trapped in quicksand merely requires the rescuer to reach out with a branch, rope, or other object to find something to anchor themselves to on this marshy ground and to reel the victim in as he hangs on. A rescuer may jump onto the quicksand to save a drowning person, but must have the swimming proficiency or else he will be in just as much jeopardy. The safest way to travel in the bog is to rope together oneself with one's companion. Though this causes a -1 hit penalty to each hero as well as limiting movement, it is far preferable to the alternative. No matter their course or preparations, the party will encounter at least one group of Bog Hounds. These beasts will attack until they are outnumbered by 4 to 1 or greater, at which point the survivors will flee into the mists. Bog Hounds 4. Intelligence Semi, Alignment Neutral Evil, Armor Class 5, Movement 15, Hit Die 2+2, Hit Points 13, 13, 10, and 9, Thaco 19, Number of Attacks 3, Damage 1d4, 1d4, 1d6, Size Medium, ML 15, XP 65 each. The party first hears the Lost Gardener thrashing through the underbrush after they dispatch the first group of Bog Hounds. From around the bend in the game trail comes a terrified, horrified screaming and chorused by the baying of hounds who have cornered their prey. A stooped old man, bloodied and muddied, hobbles out of the undergrowth. The horrible eyeless hounds close on his heels. His pitiful cries for help are weak and hoarse. The dogs, undaunted by this new foe, throw themselves into battle, foaming and snarling. These 4 hounds have the same statistics as the ones described above. 1. Meeting Michaels. Once the heroes have dispatched the beasts, the grateful man speaks.
Thanks to ye for your timely assistance. Without it, I'd surely be dead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Allow me to introduce myself to you. I am Douglas Michaels, the gardener to Sir Burton Wescote, the owner of this property and the nearby manor. I came out here in the bog to gather some herbs for you to cook when I was set upon by these nasty dogs. I've got to say, I've never expected to see anyone wandering through the bog of their own accord. Even during the day when the hounds don't come out, this place is usually shunned by the locals. Of course, I can see you're not locals, so that might explain it. Still, didn't anyone tell you that this place is supposed to be cursed? You know, not I think on it, this is the first time I'd ever seen those hounds during the daytime. That's a powerful puzzle. It's supposed to be safe to go out in the light.
An involuntary shivering shakes his frail frame.
If you could be seeing me back to the manor, we could go look after those wounds and maybe arrange for some dinner. What say ye?
The sun pierces the fog after the heroes rescue the gardener. Michaels leads the way back to the manor, chatting all the way. If the heroes cannot think of anything to talk about, Michaels will talk about anything that comes to mind. These topics will include weather, his job, and the dilapidated state of the manor house. If asked about Wescote and the curse, Michaels explains that he is devoted to Wescote, or more properly, he is devoted to his job. He might speak glowingly of the Master, or he might whisper the Master's unpredictable temper, depending on the history chosen. If Wescote is evil, Michaels tells the heroes that, though he hates speaking ill of another. Wescote is a man prone to violent rages and is sometimes an unreasonable master, though he always presents a civilized face to his guests. Michaels also begs the heroes not to tell anyone what he has said. He loves his job, if not his master, and would hate to have to look for another at this time in his life. Michaels doesn't know much about the curse. However, he does know that the bog seems to have been creeping steadily closer to the manor in the 50 years that he has been working there. Also, strangely enough, the master never seems to get any older, as though he were always being kept young by some supernatural agency. He knows that the hounds are usually nocturnal creatures, and he stays inside at night. For this reason, he has never seen the apparition described in Part 3, The Hounds Are Forever Yours, though he has heard of it from the other servants. After 15 to 20 minutes of walking, Wescote Manor's silhouette can be seen dimly in the fog. Its garbled roof rising above the tree line. Even from this distance, it seems more a derelict than an inhabited manor. As the heroes draw closer, they can see that the manor's windows are boarded up, the doors thick and stout. The building is badly in need of a paint, a strange contrast to the well-kept grounds. The bog is held at bay by the thick stone walls that ring through the estate, though in places it looks as though the wall has crumbled under the steady onslaught of the marshy ground. If the heroes ask why the manor house is boarded up, Michaels replies,
It's because of them Bog Hounds and their leader, the great Moorhound. They've thrown themselves at the windows and forced their way through the doors more than once. About 40 years ago, after I'd been here for a while, Master Wescote simply decided not to go through the trouble of replacing the windows. Every night those dogs come at us and ruin whatever work I've done during the day. We tried putting the stuff back together. I hope you'll forgive the mess.
The Hounds Are Forever Yours. Since the heroes aided Michaels, they are welcomed as honored guests, for Wescote has a difficult time recruiting new help since his reputation in Mordenshire is tarnished. Though no one from the town can reliably report whether Burton is alive or dead, the Wescote family is believed to be cursed. Only the least superstitious of the locals even consider hiring on at the family manor, leaving the manor with few candidates for employment. Eventually, Wescote asks the heroes to help break the curse that has plagued him and his family. If the heroes agree to help, they can find several clues regarding the nature of the curse in the manor house itself. The first clue is Wescote's own testimony. However, since even the dullest player is likely to realize that this version of history is slanted, there are more clues to be found. The servants may be questioned, and if Wescote is evil, the heroes may see him beating one of them in a fit of rage. There is also the apparition of the Night of the Curse. Wescote himself shows the heroes the scene, but he hides his own involvement in it. The information the heroes gain should be enough to lead them into the bog, where they can learn more of the curse of the Wescotes. Wescote Manor. The manor is a rambling two-story building filled with dust and antiques. Descriptions of the manor's rooms and any items of value follow the notes on the servants. The DM should feel free to add ordinary furniture and other items to these descriptions as the heroes explore. None of these furnishings should be especially attractive to a thief, but there is always a chance that a hero will try to flitch a few things. Remind the players that they are guests if the heroes begin filling their pockets. The few remaining servants have quarters on the first floor, but most may be encountered anywhere in the manor. The servants. Daryl Holmes, butler, second level fighter, AC 7, movement 12, hit points undetermined, strength 13, dexterity 12, constitution 14, intelligence 13, wisdom 14, charisma 11, number of attacks 1, damage 1-6, alignment lawful evil or neutral, alignment lawful neutral or lawful evil, Thaco 19. Daryl is a polite and servile, but not especially friendly. He remains in the servant's wing until summoned. Having been an adventurer once before, he has little admiration for the heroes. His personality otherwise mirrors Wescote's, if Wescote is evil. Holmes is haughty and cunning, brutal when he has a good upper hand. If Wescote is good, Holmes is gentle, though still somewhat arrogant. Martine Garrett, cook. AC 10, movement 12, hit points 3, strength 10, dexterity 13, constitution 10, intelligence 12, wisdom 9, charisma 9. Number of attacks 1, damage 1-4, alignment neutral, Thaco 20. Martine is officious and scheming, keenly conscious of the social hierarchy amongst the servants. She always wants to make herself appear better than the others, usually by criticizing other servants unfairly or attributing her mistakes to another. She is an excellent cook despite her character flaws. Douglas Michaels, gardener. AC 9, movement 9, hit points 4, strength 14, dexterity 15, constitution 13, intelligence 10, wisdom 13, charisma 8. Number of attacks 1, damage 1-3, alignment neutral good, Thaco 20. Douglas is a gentle old man who has been in the service of the Wescote family longer than any of the other servants. He walks with a limp, having broken his leg badly many years ago. Gabrielle Morgan, maid. Armor class 10, movement 12, hit points 3, strength 8, dexterity 12, constitution 15, intelligence 9, wisdom 12, charisma 13, number of attacks 1, damage 1-2, alignment neutral good, Thaco 20. Friendly and knowledgeable, Gabrielle keeps her keen mind hidden behind a facade of stupidity. She's the one who talks to the heroes about the apparition. First floor. Foyer. The entryway is graciously appointed, but appears in need of some new furniture. What remains looks as though it has been here for decades. A stairway leads to the second floor, where a balcony overlooks the foyer. Living room. This room has been abandoned. Broken glass litters the floor, and the door is nailed shut. Mud and straw from slain bog hounds are scattered about the floor. Several books have been torn from the shelves, their chewed pages scattered about the room. Because it is shut off from the rest of the manor, this room is distinctly cooler. Drawing room. Here are the wrapped gifts for the wedding that never happened. The room is full of silverware worth 200 gold pieces, a complete set of china dishes and plates worth 500 gold pieces, several pieces of art including paintings, statuary, and a violin, each worth 200 gold pieces. Weapons, including a broadsword plus 7, and a suit of plate armor. The armor is purely ornamental, but attractive, worth 400 gold pieces. Dining room. The dining room is one of the rooms that is still in good repair. The mahogany furniture is polished to shine with a mellow glow, and the place settings are sparkling clean. One thing seems odd. There's a darker, bare spot on the wall where a painting obviously used to hang. Wescote says that it was the portrait of his grandfather that was damaged. In reality, it is a picture of himself, and it is hidden away in the basement. Ballroom. Before the heroes can enter, they must pry boards and nails from the doors, as this room has been sealed shut. Once they are inside, the heroes can see that this once beautiful room is now littered with hay and mud, and all of its elegant windows are shattered. If the heroes ask Wescote or any of the servants about the disarray, they are told that the Hounds once broke inside, so now the room has been abandoned. Like the living room, this chamber is decidedly cool. A balcony upstairs contains orchestral seating, with a railing running around the length of the ballroom. Kitchen. The kitchen is well kept and bright, with scrub pots and pans dangling from the ceiling. There's a large pantry and spice rack here, and a large food preparation area dominates the room. Servants' quarters. The servants' quarters are clean and well kept. Each of the servants has his or her own room and keeps about 5 gold pieces worth of valuables hidden away here. Second floor. Study. This room is securely locked. Poor quality lock, plus 15% chance to open. It doubles as a library and a study. Lining the walls are books on history, art, and fiction. There is also a large section on the occult, specifically concentrating on works dealing with case studies of ghosts and curses. There are several books by the noteworthy Dr. Van Richten tucked away into the shelves. This room is comfortably appointed with a stuffed leather chair, an oak desk, and a huge fireplace. There's a couch facing the fire. A rumpled blanket lies across it, attesting that someone has been sleeping by the fire. Paintings adorn the panel walls, studies of the lords of Wescote Manor. The last painting, dated 100 years ago, depicts someone who looks remarkably like the current lord. About the desk are scattered papers, each of which is devoted to considering ways to break the curse of Wescote. If Wescote is evil, he has written notes cursing Cambell here, containing sentiments like, "I should have killed her when I had the chance." If the heroes enter the study, he'll try to prevent them from examining the desk, saying, "Nothing of importance here. The key to the curse lies in the bog." The words of the curse are engraved above the mantelpiece, next to a picture of a beautiful young lady with auburn tresses, a full figure, a hawk-like nose, and piercing green eyes. This is so Wescote can study the curse in an effort to figure out a way to break it. To date, he has not found one short of dying, which he would never consider a viable alternative. The curse reads, "Bog, take your bones and keep them, Burton, Wescote. The Hounds are forever yours, but now they lie beneath my hand. Long live and suffer, you selfish." A dagger sticks into the wall nearby as if someone had hurled it in a fit of anger. A safe behind one of the paintings contains a deed to the land, 500 gold pieces, a collection of 15 gems worth 200 gold pieces each, and a leather pouch holding 100 platinum pieces. The safe's lock is excellent, imposing a negative 20% penalty on any attempts to open it. The key is in Wescote's room. Master bedroom. Wescote's bedroom is functional and free of the resplendent decor of the mansion of old. It contains a 4-post bed, a dresser, a large closet. It contains no valuables except for a key to the safe in the study. It's in the drawer on the bedside table. Gallery. The music gallery overlooks the ballroom. The mess of the ballroom below does not spread up here, though the dust of the years still covers the place. The area is little used. Bedrooms. The bedrooms are sparse but comfortable. They contain only a bed, a dresser, stool, and a closet. Basement. The basement ceiling is vaulted to support the weight of the house above. The ceiling is only about 5 feet high, requiring those who come down here to stoop for their tasks. The basement's only ornaments are cobwebs and dust. Its only tenants are spiders and rats. Wine cellar. This once grand collection of rare wines has dwindled to fewer than 24 bottles. Rarely has a servant been able to get to town to replenish it. Equipment room. This room is littered with rusty or damaged furnishings and riding equipment. It is apparent that none of this has been disturbed in the past year, judging by the dust on everything. Among the equipment beneath an old canvas is the painting removed from the dining room upstairs. If the heroes discover this and remove the protective canvas, they will find that it depicts someone who looks like their host, though oddly the painting itself is dated as many decades old. The course of events. When the heroes enter the manor house, they are greeted warmly by Burton Wescote, an engaging, clever man. He listens attentively to the gardener's story, nodding sympathetically at all the right places. He seems genuinely pleased to have visitors in the house and urges them to stay for dinner. He summons the maid and the butler to tend to the party's injuries, sending them to one of the bedrooms on the second floor. When they have had their wounds washed and bandaged, Wescote sends for them. He leads them on a tour of the manor, showing them the rooms of interest. By the time the tour ends, dinner is prepared. Wescote insists that the heroes stay for dinner. If they decline, Wescote tells them that he knows the source of the Hounds and will reveal it all over dinner. He is true to his word, telling them the story of the curse laid upon his family. However, no matter his involvement in the story, he makes sure he is portrayed as the innocent victim. He simply changes his involvement using history number 1, if 4 is true, and history number 3, if 2 is true. See pages 5 through 8. Detect and other divination magics are useless here. The hero casting the spell receives no reading and knows it, rather than receiving a false reading altogether. After telling his story, Wescote insists that everyone come up to the study with him. He is eager to show them a sight.
However, you had better be prepared to stay up late. What I wish to show you takes place at the early hours of the morning, so you might wish to have some sleep beforehand.
He says no more about the matter, preferring to let the apparition speak for itself. Once in the study, he invites the heroes to make themselves comfortable. He seats himself at the desk and picks up one of his books on the hauntings. Time passes slowly, till at last the clock strikes 3. Wescote strides over to the large window.
It begins again. Every night at 3, her apparition forms, and she takes her pack of hounds out to hunt the moors. Watch.
He gazes out the expanse of land at the back of the house as a ghostly shimmer rises from the land. From your vantage point, you can see the glow shape itself into the form of a young woman, but you are too far away to make out her face. You can tell that she gazes at the house for a moment and then whirls and races towards the waiting moor. Soon thereafter, a ravenous pack of hounds races after her.
There she goes with her dogs, off to hunt the innocents who wander abroad.
He closes the drapes and fastens them quickly, but not before you glimpse another figure racing after the pack. If asked about the second ghostly figure, Wescote says that he has never been able to discern the identity of the figure, that it has only recently joined the hunt. If the heroes pull aside the curtains, they are in time to see the figures disappear off into the moor, fading as they enter a small dale in the distance. Once the phantom show has ended, Wescote turns to the party.
That's my curse. Can you help me? Will you seek out the vengeful spirit of Anne Cambell and lay her to rest, to bring me peace? I can outfit and feed you, and give you rough directions to where Anne died.
If the party agrees, Wescote crows,
Excellent! I'll have the maids show you to your rooms. You can start in the morning.
He rings a small bell on his desk, and a few minutes later, a sleepy Gabrielle comes to show the heroes to the guest rooms. The Phantom show repeats every night until the curse is broken. If the heroes wish to witness the Phantom in its entirety, something Wescote will try to prevent by luring the heroes away to some amusement or talk of another matter, they must wait outside for the Phantom to appear the following night. The heroes are powerless to interact with the Phantom no matter what they do. It is an emotional impression left on the landscape, as unchangeable as a force of nature. Exactly at the stroke of 3 in the morning, a glow will arise from the ground itself into the form of a beautiful young woman, clad in the clothing fashionable a century ago. The colors are strangely bleached, so the actual color is indistinguishable. There is no sound to this entire scene, lending it to an eerie quality. The woman's hands are stained with something dark, and her dress is smeared as well. Abruptly, she whirls, a horrified expression on her face, and then turns and races towards the moors. Spilling forth from the abandoned kennels come the ghostly images of many hounds, each howling at their sighted prey. A man, also dressed in the fashions of a century ago, stands beside the open door of the kennel, pointing towards the fleeing form of a woman and crying out. When the last of the hounds is gone, the grim-faced man races after her, his tricorn hat falling from his head. Studying the man's face reveals an uncanny resemblance to Burton Wescote. If the heroes follow the Phantom hunt into the moors, they witness the events of what actually happened a century ago. How the final portion of the Phantom's scene plays out depends on the history the DM has chosen. Number 1 or number 3, Wescote may be carrying a rope, smirking over the girl's fate. Number 2 or number 4, he may be casting about for a way to save her life. Whichever the case, the heroes can determine the true villain by witnessing this and the resting place of Anne. Unfortunately, the end of this little play will result in spontaneous creation of a pack of Bog Hounds. They will arise from the murky waters to attack. If any of the heroes attempt to interfere with this Phantom scene, the moorhound arises as well, bounding out of the bog to bring death to the interlopers. Bog Hounds, 9, Intelligence, Semi, Alignment, Neutral Evil, Armor Class 5, Movement 15, Hit Dice 2+2, Hit Points 12 each, Thaco 19, Number of Attacks 3, Damage 1-4, 1-4, 1-6, Size Medium, ML 15, XP 65 each. The Moorhound. Intelligence Vary, Alignment Neutral Evil, Armor Class 2, Movement 18, Hit Die 8, Hit Points 64, Thaco 13, Number of Attacks 3, 1d6, 1d6, 1d8, SD, hit only by +1 or greater enchantment. Magic Resistance 15%, Size Large, ML 20, XP 3000. If the heroes have been unable to identify the second figure in the Phantom, Gabrielle will wait until they are well away from Wescote and then whisper, "Did she show you the apparition? All of it?" If the heroes press her for details, she informs them that there is another figure in the apparition, but that she has never, in her 30 years of service here, mustered the courage to venture out into the bog at night to identify it. Regardless of whether the party saw the other figure, she tells them of the master's strange habit. He disappears into the bog every morning for about an hour. He comes back looking queasy and sick, and Gabrielle often hears him gagging later in the day. Thanks for listening to this recording of Howls in the Night, Part 4, The Hounds Are Forever Yours. Next up, Part 5, They Lie Beneath My Hands. They lie beneath my hand. The bog is not exceptionally large, but it houses a variety of creatures. Most of them can escape the danger the bog hounds pose, though some are able to defend themselves from the evil dogs. These encounters can take place at any time the heroes are exploring the bog. However, more important than any denizen of the bog is the moors itself. Give a personality to the bog when the players ask for descriptions of their surroundings. The trees creak and groan with age, and the mires gasp and gurgle mournfully. Every breeze is a rotting breath, and every shadow create character for the bog and make the heroes feel as if they are being watched and threatened. There are really only 2 encounters in this part of the adventure that can give the players information regarding the curse. The first is the clearing in which Anne's body lies. The second is the meeting with Anne. The other encounters are simply to add to the mystery and the horror of the bog itself. Use these sparingly if the heroes are having difficulty, more liberally if they need a greater challenge. The DM should review the rules for drowning in quicksand presented in Chapter 2, page 15 before proceeding. A. Clearing. There is a sense of menace filling this clearing. It is larger than most of the dry patches in the bog and has several obvious patches of quicksand. Heavy undergrowth surrounds the clearing, obstructing anything that could be lurking there. A small copse of trees huddles in the clearing, and a drone of insects fills the air. The stench of the bog is stronger and more horrible here. Mingling with the stink of vegetable rot is the unmistakable odor of an open grave. There is no encounter in this area unless the heroes begin digging in the quicksand. Then the ghost of Anne Cambell does its best to distract the heroes from the task until she can either animate plants to drag the heroes toward the pool or create bog hounds. If it is dark, the moorhound itself will not appear unless the night has fallen or the fog completely obscures the sun. See the next encounter for Anne's tactics should the heroes prove persistent in disturbing her body before bringing Wescote here. This clearing is the site of the final encounter between Wescote and Cambell. The heroes may investigate this area as much as they like before the final encounter, but they will find nothing of value. B. The Two Faces of Anne Cambell. This encounter can occur on any trail in the bog. Once the heroes have completed some searching, and after they have witnessed the phantom scene, Anne will appear to them. This is the ghost of Anne Cambell, not an animated corpse. She chooses to reveal herself once she realizes this is her best opportunity for peace. When the heroes encounter Anne, they will see at first a corrupted, moldering corpse. As they search the bog, have a random hero chosen to make a wisdom check. If the check succeeds, the hero has the feeling of malevolent eyes from behind staring at him. If the character whirls quickly, he sees a ghastly thing, a rotted head peering from the surface of the quagmire, staring intently at the party, its mouth open in a silent curse, and the head sinks out of sight. This vision causes a horror check. If the party investigates the quagmire further, they will discover nothing. Anne's ghostly form has fled through the waters below the surface of the muck to avoid being spotted. If the characters actually begin poking around in the muck, Anne animates a vine or another plant to drive the character into the quicksand. A vine has a THAC0 of 15. If it hits, it wraps itself around the hero's leg or arm and begins pulling the character into the quicksand. The character must make a strength check at -2 to avoid being pulled towards the swamp. 2 failed checks indicate the vine has succeeded in dragging the character below the surface. A hero drawn into the quicksand may continue to attack the vine at a -4 penalty, but only with a small weapon like a knife or a dagger. Larger weapons are useless in the muck. The vine can be severed by inflicting 10 hit points of damage on it with a type P or S weapon. The DM may substitute a harrying attack for another sort of plant, such as a gnarled tree, a flailing cattail, or a thorn bush, a spider plant, suffocating Spanish moss, and others. After several encounters of this sort, Anne determines that the heroes intend to continue their investigation and appears to them. The clinging undergrowth at last parts on a dry, blossom-covered knoll. There stands a beautiful red-haired woman gathering flowers in the midst of the swamp. She looks up, unsurprised, and sets down her basket. She straightens, smoothing her old-fashioned dress, and waits for you to approach. Something about her features seems preternaturally calm. If the heroes are observant, they may notice that this is the same woman whose portrait sits above the Wescote's mantle. A successful intelligence check indicates that she looks familiar. If the heroes remark upon this resemblance, Anne tells the characters that she is a descendant of the Cambells that they have heard about, come back to spread the truth about the night Anne was murdered. Regardless of what the heroes say, Anne decides to tell the heroes a story. She tells them the version number 1 of the history, presenting herself as the innocent victim and Wescote as the villain. She omits the names of those involved in this little tale, but her outrage over the indignity she suffered mounts through the course of the story, until she is sobbing at rage at the end of it. If, at the end of the story, the hero suggests that perhaps this woman is Anne Cambell, she acknowledges her identity. She says, "All I want is to be laid to rest. If I can but look upon the face of the man who caused my death, I can reconcile my spirit to its faith. If you could just find a way to bring him to the clearing in the northwest of the bog, I can at last find peace. From eve to the morning light is the only time that I can manifest fully. If you can bring him there, then I can calm the spirit of the swamp." If the hero suggests that she is being duplicitous, she flies into a rage, accusing the heroes of being Wescote's pawns, of wanting to see her suffer for an eternity. Bog House attacks on the heroes intensify when they leave Anne, until the heroes bring Wescote into the clearing. Nor will they be permitted to leave the vicinity until the curse is broken. If the heroes do not identify the woman as Anne Cambell, she remains calm. If the heroes are insulting, she keeps her temper under control. She asks that the heroes if they won't escort their host Wescote to the northeast clearing so that she can speak to him about her ancestors' demise. She decides to go with them to Wescote Manor, saying she won't feel comfortable in the house and would rather meet with the Lord someplace more neutral than in his house. She requests that the characters bring him in the late afternoon or the evening so that Burton and Anne can both have the night to think on the words of the other. She does not seek vengeance, only to at last put the Lord and the land at rest. Once the heroes bring Burton to the northeast clearing during the hours of dusk and dawn, move to part 5, the climax. C. Bog Hounds. This encounter takes place only at night or on exceptionally foggy days. While the heroes wander the morass of the bog, they hear the howling of the hounds nearby abruptly fall silent. For 1d10 rounds after the howling ceases, the hounds move stealthily to flank the heroes. All that may be discerned is the occasional panting of the hounds, which halts just before someone can determine its source. When the party is surrounded, or when a hero straggles behind, the hounds leap into the attack. This encounter does not occur if Anne has already persuaded the heroes to bring Wescote to the bog. Bog Hounds 8, Intelligence Semi, Alignment Neutral Evil, AC 5, Movement 15, Hit die 2+2, hit points 10 each. Thaco 19, numbers of attack 3, damage 1-4, 1, 1-6, size medium, ML 15, XP 15 each. D. Baby Shambler. This encounter is a place where the evil of a tragic death and a chance collide to create life. A shambling mound is created in this clearing, and it attacks anyone who enters. It won't pursue beyond the clearing's edge, as its long roots form a tether. It is vulnerable to all forms of attack until fully grown, a process that will take 3 more weeks. Shambling Mound 1. intelligence low, alignment neutral, armor class 0, movement 6, HD 4, hit points 24, Thaco 17, number of attacks 2, damage 2828, size medium, ML 15, XP 650. This shambler entangles its victim if both of its arms hit. Entangled victims suffocate in 2 to 4 plus constitution hit point bonus rounds unless the shambler is slain or the victim breaks free on a successful Bembar's lift gates roll with a plus 20% bonus. E. Wild boars. This is a family of wild boars that has only recently wandered into the swamp. They have been harried by the Bog Hounds at night, and several of their numbers have been killed. This makes the rest of the boars much more protective of the remaining members of the family, and they charge intruders on sight. However, because the boars have been kept awake at night, deafening themselves from the hounds and therefore are extremely tired, any damage they caused is reduced by 1. Boars 5, intelligence semi, alignment neutral, armor class 7, movement 15, hit dice 3 plus 3, hit points 18, 14, 13, 12, and 10, Thaco 17, number of attacks 1, damage 3-12, size small, ML 8, XP 175 each. F. Snakes. This encounter can take place anywhere in the swamp as snakes abound in the area. One snake might drop from a tree branch, or both might if disturbed by a careless hero's foot. Snakes, poisonous. 2. Intelligence animal, alignment neutral, armor class 6, movement 15, hit die 2 plus 1, hit points 12 and 8, Thaco 19, number of attacks 1, damage 1, special attacks poison, size small, ML 8, XP 175 each. Heroes bitten by the snakes must make a successful save versus poison or suffer 3 to 12 points of damage, 1 to 6 rounds after the bite. G. Shack. A small, crude hut stands on stilts at the edge of a pond. This house looks ready to collapse into the murky waters nearby. Smoke rises from the chimney. If the heroes open the door to the shack, they must make a surprise check. Inside rest 4 corpses as if sitting down to a meal. However, upon entering the cabin, the 4 zombies lurch to life and move towards the door to attack. The zombies are the remnants of a hunting party, trapped in the shack by the hounds. They eventually died of fear and horror. When the spirits left their bodies, the curse reanimated them and left them here for attack on any intruder. Zombies 4. Intelligence none. Alignment neutral, armor class 8, movement 6, hit die 2, hit points 14, 10, 10, and 8, Thaco 19, number of attacks 1, damage 1 through 8, magic resistance special, size small, ML special, XP 65 each.
Live long and suffer. There are 4 different endings based on the history the DM has chosen. The hero should have discovered whether Burton is a murderer or a victim through earlier clues, though they may remain uncertain till the very end. Whatever the history, and regardless of Anne and Burton's motives and alignments, the climax depends on the heroes agreeing to lead Wescote and Cambell for a face-to-face meeting, where they can discuss their differences, and where the Moorhound can force the curse to its inevitable conclusion. When the heroes have managed to bring Burton to the site of Anne's death, read or paraphrase the following. The day has turned misty. The fog obscures the land.
The day is unnaturally still as you set out from the manor into the bog. It is though every living creature senses a coming storm and hides. There's an electric tension in the air, and you can't help but wonder when the storm is going to break. In all 4 versions of the ending, the Moorhound makes an appearance to attack the heroes. In all 4 versions, the Bog Hounds stand ready when the meeting takes place, hidden in the brambles at the edge of the clearing. But who they attack and how they attack are different according to each ending. Bog Hounds, 15, Intelligence Semi, Alignment Neutral Evil, AC 5, Movement 15, Hit Die 2+2, HP 14 each. Faco 19, Attack 3, Damage 141416, Size Medium, Experience points 65 each. The Moorhound, Intelligence Vary, Alignment Neutral Evil, AC 2, Movement 18, HD 8, Hit point 64, Faco 13, Number of Attacks 3, Damage 161618, Special Damage hit only by +1 or greater enchantment, Magic Resistance 15%, Size Large, ML 20, XP 3000. Unless otherwise noted, all elements of the meeting remain the same. In each ending, the 2 adversaries eye each other carefully from across the clearing. Burton stands his ground wearily, while Anne's ghostly form rises from the bog where her body lies. After a few moments, they step forward to speak to each other, drawing near so that they can converse without others overhearing. The rest is outlined below. Number 1, the Scoundrel. In this history, Wescote commands the Moorhound and is looking for a way to come meet Cambell so that he can set the Moorhound on her. With the party present, however, he must set the Moorhound on them while he attempts to dispatch Cambell with a broadsword forged of silver, which he buckles for protection in case of treachery when the party leads him out to meet Cambell. He intends to break the curse by being rid of her and then disposing of the Wittnes to his evil. When the 2 meet, he interposes himself between the party and Cambell so that they cannot see him preparing to draw the sword. Meanwhile, the Moorhound comes up behind the party, assuming they are watching the meeting between the 2. And as Burton draws his sword and begins to attack Cambell, the Moorhound attacks the heroes. The party has 9 rounds to break free of the Moorhound before Wescote kills Cambell. The Moorhound, meanwhile, blocks the way to Cambell and attacks anyone who try to aid her. If several heroes go to her aid, the Moorhound attacks the most powerful character. Once the heroes have entered combat, Cambell can retreat and send in the Bog Hounds, who are waiting for her command. The Bog Hounds attack the Moorhound, allowing the heroes to concentrate on Wescote. As soon as Wescote falls, the mist breaks, allowing the sun to spill through. It casts its rays across the clearing, dispersing the Bog Hounds and leaving the Moorhound standing. Whatever damage it has taken from the heroes and the Bog Hounds now becomes real damage, and it can be destroyed forever. When both Wescote and the Moorhound are vanquished, Cambell's ghost begins to fade, her curse having run its course and her vengeance achieved. Anne is ready to rest, but first she turns to thank her rescuers. Anne turns and smiles at you as the sun's rays gain force. She says,
"Thank the powers that be for sending you to help break the curse. I have nothing with which to reward you, but you have my eternal gratitude."
She smiles wryly.
"Well, what's that worth?"
The sunbeams flow through her, and her form becomes more and more insubstantial until she is gone altogether. If Cambell is defeated, Wescote and the Moorhound turn on the party. Though Cambell is destroyed, the presence of the Moorhound keeps Wescote from aging. If the Moorhound is killed, as it can be once Cambell is gone, Wescote ages suddenly, the century of youthfulness catching up to him. He writhes and dies before the party's eyes. Even if the Moorhound is not killed, Wescote wastes no breath in explaining himself to the heroes. He believes it is better to be rid of them quickly. If he defeats the party, he continues on his cursed existence. The Bog Hounds can no longer be created, but the Moor Hound is still there to harass the travelers and bring them to his door. Wescote's immortality is no longer dependent on drinking bog water, but he still cannot wander far from the house. So he lures travelers to his house, rings them for news and camaraderie, killing them when he tires of them. That was ending 1. 2. The Shrew. Cambell says her fondest wish is for reconciliation between the two. In reality, she is hoping to lure Wescote out on his own, but accepts the party's presence as the next best thing. Once he has come before her, she appears in her beautiful guise and approaches him as if to exchange whispers of times past. When the two have closed, she concentrates for a moment, and then the Moorhound comes charging into the clearing. It pauses, then turns and attacks the party, attempting to slay them all. Meanwhile, the Bog Hounds hidden in the weeds nearby come charging out, barreling towards Wescote. Cambell retreats to hover over one of the bog patches so that she'll be harder to attack. She watches the battle in contentment, thinking it's certain that her enemy will be defeated today. During this, the fog has been fading. After 3 rounds, the sun breaks through for a moment, through a gap in the clouds and the fog, and strikes the Moorhound. Now, with the beast actually vulnerable, the party can kill it, but they had better hurry, for Wescote can stand up to the Bog Hounds for only 10 rounds, 3 of which are already gone. As in number 1, the Moorhound moves to attack any hero who goes to his aid. Cambell continues to watch the fracas, attacking only if the Moorhound is reduced to 15 hit points. She attacks the strongest character, or the one who seems most likely to cause her the greatest amount of damage. If Wescote is killed, she laughs loudly and descends into the bog. She sends the Moorhound away, leaving the heroes to bear Wescote's body back to the manor. She haunts the bog to harass the travelers, until the Moorhound is destroyed and her body is dredged from the mire and laid to its final rest. If Cambell and the Moorhound are destroyed, Wescote lets out a sigh of relief and slumps to the ground. Any Bog Hounds left alive crumble away to nothingness as their creator is destroyed. The sun breaks through the fog for good just as he hits the ground. Wescote lies there in the grass for a moment. Burton basks in the sun's rays for a moment, his eyes closed. Lacerations cover his body, testimony of the ferocity of the Bog Hound's attacks. He breathes heavily for a few moments and then rises to his feet. He smiles shakily at you and says,
I owe you my life. For the first time in years, I feel like I actually have something to live for. For that alone, I'm forever in your debt. Please, come back to the manor to rest and healing. I'll do what I can to make sure you are amply rewarded.
That said, Wescote leads the way back to the manor to reward the heroes. He shows them to the room where he has been storing the wedding gifts and allows each hero to select one, because nothing says thank you than leftover wedding gifts. Should the heroes ever travel this way again, they will be welcome at Wescote Manor, provided they can show that they were actually at the wedding. Number 3. Evil Company. Both of the main players in this tragedy are evil. Neither places any credence in the goodwill of the other. Both also suspect the heroes of secretly working with their enemy. Burton has bought a silver sword with which to kill the ghost. The two have come to think enough alike that they draw close together and see the heroes regarding them. They instantly assume the characters stand ready to attack. As one, the two rush the heroes and attack the party together for 2 rounds. The Moorhounds join in as well, giving the party the fight of their life. When the two realize they are both attacking the heroes, they turn on each other. The Moorhound, however, continues to battle the party. If the heroes drive the Moorhound away and join the battle, the tide turns in favor of the side that they choose. Otherwise, Anne kills Burton in 12 rounds. If the party sides with Wescote and destroys Cambell,
The resolution continues as in number 1. If the party sides with Cambell against Wescote, the adventure finishes as in number 2. If they do nothing, Cambell kills Wescote, and it continues as in number 2. Whatever the choice, the heroes will have to deal with the other once of the two is destroyed. Number 4. Curse of the Bog. In this history, the dog is the perpetrator of the curse, the linchpin that keeps the two from reconciling with one another. Its very existence depends on the two foes failing to discover that both or neither were at fault, depending on one's point of view. The old Obi-Wan defense. If the two meet and resolve their conflict, the Hound's existence comes at an end. Therefore, the Hound works to ensure that such a reconciliation is never possible. When the two meet, the Hound silently destroys the Bog Hounds lurking in the weeds to ensure they cannot be used against it in the coming battle. Since Cambell is not guiding the dogs, they offer no resistance to the Hound. By the time the two are close enough to touch each other, the Hound is ready for action. It crouches in the bushes at the edge of the clearing and readies its attack. From where the heroes stand, they can see that the ghost's face is twisted with anger. But she is listening. Burton is speaking in a low, persuasive voice, too low for the heroes to hear. When he finishes explaining, he calls to the heroes back to him to tell what they saw during the phantom apparition. Anne, her face more thoughtful, begins explaining her side of the story. And then the Hound attacks, sensing that it is weakening. Anne and Burton are speaking to each other and do not see the Hound coming. A surprise roll can be made for the heroes to keep it from attacking the two. If they fail, the Hound falls upon Burton and tears at his throat. Anne stands back aghast to the turn of events. If the heroes do nothing for 2 rounds, the Hound rips at the throat of the man and turns on the heroes, the curse finally made eternal. If the heroes do step in, the reconciliation between the two suffers, as Burton suspects Anne of setting the Hound on him. She must explain that she has nothing to do with the Hound's movements, but to this, she needs time. Only if the heroes can keep the Hound from attacking the couple for 10 rounds can they ensure that the two placate each other's hatred. If the Hound escapes the party to attack Wescote, the process is set back again for at least another 5 rounds. However, while the two are speaking responsibly to each other, the Hound is completely vulnerable to ordinary weapons. It can be killed utterly if the two forgive each other. Breaking the concentration restores 15 hit points to the Hound, so its main efforts are devoted towards keeping the hatred between the two fanned. Once they have made peace, they stand back and watch the party destroy the Hound. Only if the party members are in mortal danger do the two step in. If the Hound is killed, the curse is broken and the two go back to the rewards. Burton is able to live an ordinary existence, and Anne finally gets to rest, her spirit appeased. Burton gazes at the fading spirit of the ghost, once again beautiful. She smiles radiantly as she vanishes. Tears of joy stream down Burton's face as he turns to you.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart, he says. But you have granted peace to myself and to Adam forever in your death.
The sun bursts through the fog, as if to underscore the relief and happiness in Wescote's voice. I should have read happiness. I was kind of crying. But anyway.
I know that you are weary of battle. Probably more tired for the rest of your travels,
he continues.
But I'd be honored if you would help me dredge out the morass to recover Anne's body, so that I may give it a real burial. I understand if you won't help, and I won't be affronted. Come back and let's go to the manor for a bath and some rest, and your reward.
With a look over his shoulder, motioning for you to follow, he heads back into the house. I may have to come back to that last paragraph. Maybe not to reread it, but just to like unpack everything in that last paragraph. Like that said a lot in there. So I'm not really prepared to address what was in that paragraph. Right. He will let the heroes select from these used wedding gifts again. Oh my god. He will let the heroes select from the wedding gifts as a sign of gratitude. If they do not want to dredge for Anne's body, he will eventually send them on their way. He assures them that they always have a place in Morden if they ever return. Appendix. Non-player characters. Burton Wescote, 5th level human warrior. Strength 16, Dexterity 15, Constitution 15, Intelligence 14, Wisdom 10, Charisma 13. Alignment, lawful good or chaotic evil, and again that depends on which history you choose. Armor class 2, hit points 33, Thaco 16, attack number 1, number of attacks 1, damage 2d8 broadsword, movement 12. Equipment. Wescote's house contains all manner of equipment. Most of it is old and in poor of quality, because few supplies have reached the manor house since the curse began. Description. Wescote is of medium height and slender frame, with tan skin, brown hair, and blue eyes. He wears spectacles, but his poor eyesight does not diminish his fighting capacity in any way. His slender build hides a strength one would have not believed from his appearance. His manner is both confident and agitated at once, as though he were preoccupied. Whatever history the DM chooses for the course of the adventure, Wescote is always charming and hospitable. His manner is pleasant and cultured, as befits a true gentleman. He will not offer violence to guests in his house unless provoked, even if the DM selects the evil version, unless he thinks he can get away with it. He is hesitant to reveal his part in the disappearance of Anne Cambell. He does not want to admit that he played a significant part in it, whether or not he is guilty. He feels that it reflects badly on him no matter the circumstances, and does his best to downplay his involvement, even going so far as to lie about the tale if necessary. Anne Cambell, 7-hit die ghost. Strength, Dexterity, Constitution are nil. Intelligence 14, Wisdom 12, Charisma 15. Alignment, Chaotic Evil. Armor class 2, hit points 53, Thaco 13, number of attacks 1, damage 1d8, movement 12. Special attacks, cause fear and scarring, see below. Special defenses, hit only by weapons of +1 or greater enchantment. Special defenses, hit only by weapons of +1 or greater enchantment or silver. Equipment, Anne does not use equipment, preferring to attack hand-to-hand or to create her own weapons from the bog. She has the ability to cause wounds when she attacks. Every time she hits, there is a chance, 1% per point of body damage inflicted, that she has permanently scarred her victim. A scarred victim subtracts 1 point of charisma. If the victim reaches 0 charisma, the character dies. That's awesome. Put a pin in that one. Description. Though she was once surely beautiful, Anne Cambell's true form is now that of a ghastly creature, dripping quicksand and rotten flesh wherever she goes. With an effort, she can mask her spirit's deterioration, appearing as she did in life. When she first meets the party, she forces herself into her beautiful shape so that she can distract them and give them information that they can trust. Occasionally, while wandering through the bog, the heroes might witness her true corrupted form, regarding them from the safety of the quicksand morass. If they move to investigate her, she sinks beneath the surface and becomes incorporeal, thus rendering herself invisible. Being dead has driven her insane. She now hates all life, Burton Wescote in particular. If possible, she manipulates the heroes into bringing them to the bog so that she can destroy him. Depending on the history chosen, however, she may reach a reconciliation with Wescote and be laid to rest. Like Burton, she attempts to downplay her role in the death, painting herself as an innocent victim. No matter which history is chosen, she believes that she was the only one wronged, and is nearly impossible to dissuade her. She is tied to the bog and to her relationship with Burton, so Anne cannot pursue the heroes beyond the bog. However, she can send her hounds after them, up to a range of 10 miles. She cannot age her opponents as can most ghosts. Instead, she works with her hounds, her scarring attack, and her ability to cause fear, save versus paralyzation or flee for 1d6 rounds, to defend herself and to destroy those who she hates. Cambell's vulnerability is not only to magical and silver weapons, but also to the bites of real dogs. Dogs, but not the Bog Hounds or the Moorhounds itself, cause her twice the normal damage. The Moorhound may still attack Anne for normal damage, but the Bog Hounds are always under her control. Hound, the main manifestation of the curse, is an enormous coal-black mastiff. Its eyes glow fiery red as though lit by a furnace, and its breath steams even in warm air. Its role in the adventure changes based on the history chosen. When Wescote meet face to face, the Moorhound can no longer bound it away once it has reached 0 hit points. Instead, it regenerates 1 point per turn, but dies forever if reduced to 0 hit points. It cannot be harmed except by magical weapons, unless one of the effects noted below comes into play. The Moorhound is the protector of the curse, keeping it from ending. The arrival of the heroes may change everything, so the Moorhound will do its best to make sure that the heroes do not break the curse, since its own existence depends on the continuation of the curse. The Moorhound cannot abide sunlight. If it is exposed to sunlight, even the briefest ray, it loses its invulnerability for a number of days equal to the number of rounds the sun shone upon the Moorhound. If the sunlight falls on the Moorhound for even a part of 1 round, it's vulnerable for a day. If the sunlight touches the Moorhound for 3 rounds, its vulnerability lasts 3 days. The Moorhound's master changes according to the history chosen by the DM. In number 1, where Wescote was the villain and Cambell was the innocent, the Moorhound is under Wescote's control. Wescote uses the Moorhound to attack Cambell and the heroes once they learn his secret. In history number 2, where Burton is innocent and Anne is the villain, the Moorhound is under Anne's control. Instead of attacking Burton herself, Anne uses the Moorhound to wreak her revenge. The Moorhound is losing a fight as she steps in herself. In history 3, where both Anne and Burton are evil, the Moorhound is again under Anne Cambell's control. She uses it indiscriminately to attack the Wescote and the heroes. The Moorhound prowls the night, seeking to kill whoever falls into its clutches. In history 4, where the curse comes about as a misunderstanding, and where it is tied to the problem with the ancestors of the two, the Moorhound is under no one's control. Instead, as the enforcer of the curse, it exists to prevent the two from reconciling. If the two do come to a reconciliation, the Moorhound is weakened. Since it feeds on the hatred between the two, it loses some of the power should they reconcile. However, the Hound will have stored enough hit points to remain a threat. It becomes a creature of 6 hit dice, 48 hit points, and armor class of 4, and vulnerability to ordinary weapons. Bog Hounds. We'll do that first. Climate, terrain, swamp. Frequency, very rare. Organizational activity cycle, pack, nocturnal. Diet, carnivores. Intelligence, semi, 3. Treasure, none. Alignment, neutral evil. Number of appearing, 2 to 20. Armor class, 5. Movement, 15. Hit dice, 2 plus 2. Thaco, 19. Number of attacks, 3. Damage per attack. Special attacks, nil. Special defenses, nil. Magic resistance, nil. Size, medium, 6 foot long. Morale, champion, 15. XP value, 65 each. The Moorhound, Swamp Bog, unique. Organizational activity cycle, pack leader nocturnal. Diet, carnivore. Intelligence, vary, 12. Treasure, none. Alignment, neutral evil. Number appearing, 1. Armor class, 2. Movement, 18. Hit dice, 8. 64 hit points. Thaco, 13. Number of attacks, 3. Damage per attack, 1/6, 1/6, 1/8. Special attacks, none. Special defenses, hit only by +1 or greater enchantment. Magic resistance, 15%. Size, large, 7 feet long. Morale, fearless. XP value, 3,000. Bog Hounds are large dogs, about the size of war dogs. Dog by magic or the exceptionally strong will of a creature that can shape life. Sculpted of straw and mud, the hounds are granted life by a wicked magic or curse. Their color is a muddy brown with splotches of yellow. The most frightening feature of these beasts is their lack of eyes. They only have empty black sockets to gaze out into the world. Once the Bog Hounds are created, the Moorhound leads them into whatever task their creator desires. The Moorhound is made of the vapors of the bog rather than from the mud and the straw. It's a coal-black creature with flaming red eyes. Its jaws can easily fit around a full-grown man's head, and they are powerful enough to snap bone. Though those that appear in this adventure are the creation of the curse of Anne Cambell on Burton, Wescote, similar Bog Hounds and a leader Moorhound can be useful in any swampy area where the curse of this magnitude has been laid. Combat. Like ordinary dogs, the Bog Hounds attack by flanking their victims and closing to attack from all sides at once. When hunting, they send up an unearthly howl, subsiding only when they are about to close in. In combat, they react as ordinary hounds unless the Moorhound or their master instructs them to perform another task. When killed, they return to their original forms, dissolving into scattered straw and mud, a gasp of vapor escaping from their bodies. The Bog Hounds are vulnerable to sunlight. If they are exposed to the sun, their supernatural essence evaporates like fog, and they become inanimate sculptures of straw and mud, trapped in the pose in which the light first caught them. These straw sculptures can be destroyed by the slightest touch. Unless the extreme care is taken, the straw statues cannot be moved. Hounds can only be hit by enchanted weapons. However, it only seems to suffer real damage from them, for it can be destroyed only after it has been exposed to sunlight. Otherwise, once it has been reduced to 0 hit points or below, the Moorhound rebounds off to rejuvenate itself. It always leaves a trail of blood that leads directly to a pool of quicksand, but there is no further trace of the Moorhound until the next night when it comes back fully regenerated. If not exposed to sunlight, the Moorhound cannot die. It can, however, be captured. The Moorhound is even more vulnerable to sunlight. Even if the slightest beam directly hits the Moorhound, it can be hit by ordinary weapons and permanently killed, breaking the part of the curse which gave it life. Any false damage it took before being exposed to sunlight suddenly becomes real. Perhaps slaying these Moorhounds outright, as a ghostly howling marks its passage into nothingness. Habitat and Society. The Bog Hounds are under the control of the being who brought them into life. They have no other social order except for this. They follow the Moorhound, who also serves the master of the Bog Hounds. Ecology. As supernatural creatures, the Moorhound and its minions have no place in any natural ecology. The Bog Hound's diet is listed as carnivorous. In truth, it needs to eat nothing, but when it attacks, it savages and devours only living, fleshy creatures. It gains no sustenance from eating. It is simply vicious. Appendix. I got recentered myself. Coming in hot on the last chapter. Start screaming the appendix. That's a good idea.